With Derik Queen becoming the face of the future for the Pelicans, what can this team do to maximize his talent? All that and more on this edition of The Nest. Welcome back, everybody, to the next RSP. My name is Robin, and welcome back. We got more episodes coming out in December as things start to heat up with the Pelicans, and also just as my schedule personally frees up a bit and allows us to do this. But I'm so excited. I'm recording this fresh after we won yesterday. That would be Thursday versus the Trailblazers. So it was a very good win. Very good. I'm really liking what I see from this team as a whole, and it's really coming together nicely. So I'm glad to see it. But what we're going to be talking about today is about Derik Queen, what the team can do to fit around him, and what the future of this team is going to look like prior to when we look at possible trade candidates as the trade market heats up. Because I think knowing where this team needs to be and what the goal, kind of like the end picture is for this team, is key before you start making these trades. Because while not every trade is going to fit that goal, it may at least set you in position to get to that goal later on. So we're going to be talking about that. But first, make sure you hit that likes button, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and make sure you go check out the TikTok where I post daily content over there. Instagram, pretty much daily content, at the very least Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and just everything in between. Go check it out. It's a lot of fun, and it's a little more consistent than what I do here. Okay, first things first, what does this team kind of need to build around, at least with the starting lineup? What does this team need to do to maximize Derik Queen? Because we kind of see that a lot with offensive hubs like Derik Queen. You see that with teams like with Domas Sabonis and the Kings, obviously Nikola Jokic and the Nuggets. Even Draymond Green, who's not really that same offensive hub. He's not the same like offensive threat. He is that kind of that hub action that the Warriors use a lot in order to facilitate their offense. So that's another team that we can look at. Also, Alperen Şengün and the Rockets are another team. So what have those teams done, and what's been successful with those teams in order to maximize what Derik Queen can do as a hub for this Pelicans team? So we're going to be looking at that. First things first, I want to get into this team does have a lot of pieces that already fit that timeline and already fit that goal. So I'm mainly going to be talking about them and seeing what doesn't fit and what can we do and what should fit in that scenario, if that makes any sense. But first thing we definitely have is a scoring lead guard, or at the very least a scoring combo guard, which is what Jeremiah Fears is for this team. He's a very good guy that plays off the ball really well. He can create for himself on the ball very well. He's kind of like that Jamal Murray role, that Amen Thompson role, Steph Curry. It's weird to think of Steph Curry as just the second option and like compare him to Jamal Murray and Amen Thompson, but in that offensive hub with Draymond Green, that's kind of what he was. He was that elite creator on and off the ball. So that's kind of what we need, and we had that with Jeremiah Fears. He's already very good at that. Very good. He's a pretty good guy in that role, and then he's only going to get better as the shot becomes more consistent, as his confidence grows, and as he begins to learn the game a bit better with facilitating. Because you also want to have a secondary facilitator alongside Derik Queen, so that if they, like they do with Nikola Jokic, if they start to double him and take the ball out of his hands, you want someone like Jeremiah Fears, or like someone who can facilitate the ball and at the very least control the offense a little bit in spurts when they are doubling the big. So you have that with Jeremiah Fears, thankfully. The next thing that this team doesn't really need, but there's the next thing that a team with Derik Queen needs, is a play finishing wing. When we're talking about that, we're talking about guys who are elite off the ball, who are elite catch and shoot, who are elite just like play finishers, whether it's lobs, whether that's catch and shoot threes, whether that's just catch, drive, and finish opportunities. You need someone that does that. Like for the Nuggets, it was Michael Porter Jr. He was very elite at that role, just catch, shoot, and finish. He was a black hole, like Michael don't pass the rock Porter Jr., but he is still a very good play finisher, and that's why, because he just needs to catch and finish. So I'm good. You need someone like that with this team, and Trey Murphy can definitely be that for this team. He's a little older than the timeline, but I personally am a big fan of Trey, and I do like if we were to keep him and have him be part of that core. But there's other guys that you can fill in that role, like for the Rockets, the Rockets have a lot of guys that kind of fit that role. Kevin Durant's kind of the guy doing that role right now, and he's one of the best in that regard. But then you also get guys like Klay Thompson on the Warriors who did that at an elite level in his prime, and then you have other guys like that across other, like Domas Sabonis. I'm trying to think of who he had. Keegan Murray kind of was that role, I guess. It's very weird. It's very weird to see because the Kings didn't do it well. So I'm going to be talking when we're talking about in the minute. We're going to be talking about teams that didn't use the offensive hub correctly and what they failed to do and what we need to make sure we don't do. And the Kings are not like the best example. So they're no offense, Kings fans. We're going to be calling you out a little bit on that one. The next thing that you need a lot, the main thing that you need that we don't have right now is a big presence inside. And I don't mean necessarily like you need a legit center. When I'm saying a big presence, I'm saying you need one of two things. You either A, need a versatile defensive forward who can switch, not necessarily 1 through 5, but can at the very least guard 1 through 5 if need be. But also has an ability to finish plays, preferably is a shooter or a lob finisher or both. And just those type of guys, kind of like Aaron Gordon is the prime example with Nikola Jokic and Nuggets. He fits with that team beautifully. Draymond Green kind of had Andrew Wiggins, who did that role really well with the 2022 Warriors. 2022? Yeah, 2022 Warriors. He did that role really well. And you need someone like that. Preferably, they need to be a defensive presence because that's the thing. Derik Queen, I don't think is ever going to be like this good rim protecting defender. So you need someone who can switch and at least funnel the offense or defensively funnel the offense. That's what I'm trying to say. Defensively funnel the offense to Derik Queen so he can be a rim deterrent. So that's kind of what you need to look for. And there's a lot of guys that fit that role really well. There's Tari Eason. I think he's the best example of what he could be. He's a good like combo forward who is an elite defender. He's shooting the ball really well this year. And he's kind of like the prime example. Also, I should probably preface, when I'm saying all these names, I'm not saying that the Pelicans can realistically get these guys. I'm just naming examples of guys you should look for and maybe if you want to compare and things like that. So I'm going to be saying a bunch of names that it's like, okay, yeah, the Pelicans there's no way the Pelicans are going to get Tari's, and there's no way the Pelicans are going to get such and such and such and such. I'm not saying that we need to go out and get them. I'm just listing examples, just to preface that. But Tari Eason's a good example of that. PJ Washington is another really good example of that. I love PJ Washington. I love his game. He's a guy that kind of epitomizes it perfectly. I have my list right here. John Collins is a very good example of that. He's not like a defensive presence necessarily, but he is athletic enough that he can play the center, he can play the power forward, and he's a pretty solid rim protector at that power forward position. And just being able to offensively shoot, catch lobs, all that stuff, I really do like that role as well for John Collins. Well, maybe not this year because John Collins has not been good this year, but normal John Collins is pretty good in that role. But another thing that you could substitute in for that forward is a center, a mobile stretch big center. Now, this is a little more hard to find because there's not a ton of guys that actually fit that role, but you need someone who is a mobile big who can also hit the three and also preferably be a good rim protector. So you kind of need that all-around big. You kind of need like a Miles Turner type. You need these guys. And we kind of have that. We have that with Karlo Makovic. He's a very raw and a very not the same level of talent that we need to start, but he's a guy that has all those skills. He can hit the three at a pretty good clip. He's an elite lob finisher. He's a pretty good rim protector and a pretty good rim deterrent around the rim. So I do like him in that role. It's just a matter of can he become talented enough to start for us and be in that role, which is a big if. But there's other guys that kind of fit that role as well. Onyeka Okongwu is like the prime example because he is small enough and mobile enough that he can play the 4 or the 5. He's broken out the season as a really good three-point shooter, and he's already been a great rim protector. I love him. If him and Derik Queen is like a match made in heaven, it's not going to happen, but those two those two would complement each other insanely well. Other than there's other guys like Isaiah Stewart is a guy that I really like in that role. He's a pretty good stretch 4. He's a great rim protector, and lineups with him and Jalen Duren have been absolutely incredible defensively. So he's another guy that could really fit well in that role. Jalen Smith is a guy who's not necessarily talented enough to be a starter, but he's a guy that also kind of fits, kind of like we were talking about with Carlo, where he has all those skills. He's a good three-point shot maker. He's very athletic. He's 6'10", so he's undersized enough that he can play the 4 or the 5, but he's also a solid rim protector in that role. So I like him as well if you want to go and get him and maybe risk the upside that, okay, he can maybe start for us, but he may not be able to. But I like him as well. And then we talked about Nas Reed is a guy. He's not the same level of rim protector as some of these other guys, but he's kind of another one of those other forward centers that can hit the three. He's athletic enough, and I trust him as a mobile defender to kind of be that nice medium between the like the defensive forward and the rim protecting big. So I like Nas Reed as well in that role. And there's many other guys, like Jonathan Isaac would be very good in that role. I don't trust him as a three-point shot maker, but he's a guy that can be well. Ryan Dunn, from what I've seen from him on the Phoenix Suns, he can be that role really well. But the issue is that a lot of these guys, when it comes to getting this type of player, it's a kind of a niche type of player, and it's going to be a little expensive to get him because a lot of competing teams already have the majority of the guys. Like Chet Holmgren, Jaren Jackson Jr., these guys are borderline or just straight all-stars or stars that are going to be highly expensive. And finding a role-playing version of that is going to be very hard unless you do it through the draft or unless you get lucky and someone breaks out like that. Like Carlo is a good example. Like he kind of broke out into that. Jalen Smith kind of broke out into that. So you got to be very careful with that, and it's going to be very tricky. The next thing to round out the starting lineup that I think every single one of these hub offense has is a 3-and-D guard or a 3-and-D wing who pretty much is just a point of attack defender who can also hit the three. And we saw that with KCP and now Christian Braun on the Nuggets. That's the prime example right there. If you look at the Warriors, you kind of had a couple. You had Andre Iguodala, who kind of fit that role. Klay Thompson fit that role. Andrew Wiggins also fit that role a little bit. The Kings kind of have that. They currently have that with Keon Ellis, but I'm thinking back at that 2023 little playoff run they had where they were like the 4th seed, and they had I'm trying to think who was starting. I don't think Malik Monk was starting. He wouldn't really fit that role. So, I mean, Kevin Huerter kind of fits that role, but they didn't really have a ton of defense on that team, so they don't have a good example of that, but that's what you need. And there's a lot of guys in the league that kind of fit that role. It's not too hard to find a guy who does that. I got a list of guys that may be available, but like Nickeil Alexander-Walker is kind of like that prime example. Lonzo Ball is a guy I would just love to have back. Derek White is like the prime example of 3-and-D. And then the other guys, you have Herb Jones who can kind of be that. He's not the same level of three-point shot making, but he is that elite defender. And if I am the Pelicans, I'm prioritizing, okay, get that elite point of attack defender and then see if they can be good enough as a three-point shooter. Because Derik Queen is going to increase the offense of these guys, but he's not going to increase the defense. So you want to have the defense where it needs to be and then hope that the offense can increase enough. That's my mentality, but take your poison. Now, when it comes to the bench, I'm only going to talk about 3 things that you need off the bench. And these are not necessarily necessities like these other things are. I think these other things are actual necessities. These 3 things are going to be more like, okay, these are my recommendations for what you need off the bench. A good bench across the NBA has these 3 things, but with a hub like Derik Queen, I think these 3 things are incredibly important. So the first thing that you need is a veteran lead pass-first point guard. And it's pretty cut and dry. When you have Derik Queen off the court or when you have Jeremiah Fears on the court, you want someone who can facilitate the offense in a different way. And I would like to have someone who's a veteran but also pushes the pace because Derik Queen's a little slower with the team, so you can run lineups that are more high pace and you can mix up the offense a little bit. Kind of like what the Clippers did a couple years ago where they had James Harden starting and then Russell Westbrook off the bench. James Harden's a very slow-paced offense and then Russell Westbrook's fast-paced offense. That little switch-up is nice when you need to mix things up. So there's a couple guys that fit that role really well. Dennis Schroeder is a guy that fits the role really well. Trey Jones, I think, is a guy that the Pelicans should look into because he could be very good in that role, and he should be relatively cheap. You have Jose Alvarado, who maybe can do that, but I don't know. I love Jose to death. I'm just worried about can he consistently be enough of a lead pass first guard in order to do that, which he did last night during the Trailblazers game. He was a very good pass first guard in that game. Can he do it for 82 games in a season? That's what I'm waiting to see. Lonzo Ball, weirdly enough, like I said, I would love him back, but he's not going to facilitate and create the offense so much. He's just a really good passer, but he can be a guy that fits that role pretty well. Aaron Holiday, I think he's a little older, but he's a dude that also fits the role incredibly well. And Scottie Pippen Jr., Scottie Pippen Jr. is my dream. I love Scottie Pippen Jr.'s game to death. And if you can get him to be that backup point guard for you, that would be an insanely good pickup alongside, because he's fast paced, he's hustle defensively. He is Jose Alvarado, just a little bit better and a little bit younger. And that's what I love about Scottie Pippen Jr. The next thing that you need off that bench is your really good shot creator off the bench. And right now we do have that. We have that with Jordan Poole, who has been that role. But Jordan Poole is 26. He's going to be 27. He's a little outside of the time range. And if you wanted to keep him, you absolutely could, because I think his game is going to age pretty well. And you don't need to worry about him aging out anytime soon. But if you wanted to get younger and wait and get that guy later on, there's a couple guys that you could look into. A good example of this, again, was Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is actually underratedly versatile. You can put him in that 3-and-D role, or you can put him in what the Hawks are doing right now and have him be a secondary creator. And bringing him off the bench would be a huge boost for shot creation with this team. Anthony Simons is doing that right now, and Peyton Pritchard as well, depending on, I don't know which one they're starting right now, but one or the other is starting. The other one is the bench creator, and I like those are guys that work really well in that role. Kobe White, I don't think he shouldn't be off the bench. I think he's starting, but if you were to get him and bring him off the bench to kind of play that Jordan Poole role, that would be very good, because he also is a really good shot creator. He's a little more athletic than Jordan Poole, so he may be a bit better if you wanted to start him a couple games, or at the very least, like, start him alongside Derik Queen at times for offensive boost. But that's another guy you can look into. And then your typical Malik Monks, your Jaden Ivey's. I think Jaden Ivey's still coming off the bench. Don't quote me on that. I haven't watched a ton of Pistons basketball. Good team though. Jaden Ivey, if you bring him off the bench, he can be that. And then a guy that I don't know what his role is right now, but Jared McCain. If you can go and pick up Jared McCain, that might be a really good guy to bring off the bench and have him play that role. So it'd be very interesting to see. And the last thing you need in terms of like core pieces is an athletic backup big. And you have that. You have that right now with Yves Missi. You have that with Karlo Makovic. But the issue is, can those guys be good enough to be rotation players? And right now, Yves Missi is playing solid. Karlo Makovic, he hasn't played a ton recently, but he plays solid when he does play. But are there any other guys that kind of fit that role? Like with the Kings didn't really have this. I mean, they kind of did. They had JaVale McGee. Nuggets had that with DeAndre Jordan, albeit he was old, but he's still an athletic center, and you want to preferably have them young because athleticism. But the Warriors had that again with JaVale McGee. They had it with they had a couple players actually. Andrew Bogut, Zaza Pachulia, they all kind of fit that role, even though some of them started. But you just want someone who's athletic enough that can be mobile when you take Derik Queen out to just be a lob threat with that veteran point guard. So a couple guys I have, again, Yves, Karlo, Ryan Kalkbrenner. He's the rookie for the Hornets. I don't think they're moving off him anytime soon, so I'm not suggesting that, but that's guys that I would look into. Again, Moussa Diabate, also in the Hornets. He's very good in that role, just a straight hustle dude. I love him. I love just watching him. Daniel Gafford's kind of like the epitome of that rim running 3, or rim running 5, excuse me, and doing that for the team. So I love his game. I love Daniel Gafford. And then you got Trace Jackson Davis, who hasn't gotten a ton of playing time for the Warriors, but he's another dude that fits that. And then Jackson Hayes, former Pelican. He's a dude that also fits that role really well. And other than that, the rest of the roster pretty much just needs to be 3-and-D or shooters or just defensive players. Just these guys that can fill in the defensive gaps and fill in the shooting gaps. And those are just rotation players that you need. So it's not going to be too hard. But in my opinion, that's what this Pelicans team needs to be looking into when it comes to building this team around Derik Queen. And we're going to be talking about this next week about if we're trading Zion, what can we trade for him to actually start that process and start getting that process going, because this is going to be a long process. Derik Queen is just about to turn 21. Jeremiah Fears is about to he just turned 19, so he's going to be 20 next year. You got a ton of time to slowly build out this team, or not slowly, but you have time to progress this team in a way that makes it work. So we're going to be talking about that. But for now, I'm going to just leave it off here. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure, again, hit that like and subscribe button. Go check out the Tech Talk and everything. And let me know what y'all think. Do y'all think that this concept could work? Do you think would you change anything if you were the Pelicans front office? Would you be looking for anything else other than things I mentioned? Or do you agree? Let me know in the comments down below. But anyway, thank y'all again, and I'll catch you on the next. What the heck am I talking about? I'll catch you next time, y'all.